You're listening to Never Heard of It, a Night Shift Radio production.
So I think it would be hilarious if we didn't already have a climate of kind of like anti-science, anti-intellectualism. Like if intellectualism, if I actually thought that people would get the joke, I think it would be fucking amazing to have like a YouTube show that was like kind of a Mr. Wizard type thing, like explaining science, but explaining it completely wrong. And I came to this idea when we were having pizza at a local place, and it had like a spicy salami on it. And I was like, I really just want to convince at least one person that spicy salami comes from a special breed of pig that's fed nothing but like organic chilies, and like the capsaicin sucks into the meat.
That's like I remember growing up when people were like, "Well, chocolate milk only comes from brown cows."
Yeah,
like
exactly.
that. I remember that. Like I believed that as a kid, because every time I saw a brown cow, I was like, "Chocolate cow, let's get chocolate milk," because kids are fucking stupid. So,
like, I feel like I could convince at least one person that the meat actually comes out of the animal spicy.
Because they're fed nothing but spice. I think that's amazing. And speaking of inaccurate science, well, I guess this isn't inaccurate science as much as it's inaccurate history. Even though they were like, well, this is true, but it's up for some speculation. Which, first off, these fuckers do not know what speculation means. But secondly, hello and welcome to the Never Heard of It podcast. I'm your host, Michael Fight.
And I am Caleb the Mummy's Kiss Coy. So, as you may have caught at the very beginning of this episode, we have something exciting happening here. Team Nahoit is officially rebranding as Night Shift Radio Productions in an effort to bring you a whole bunch more fantastic content, so you can expect great things from Night Shift Radio in the near future. But you can expect complete and utter garbage in this episode from fucking Blood Scarab. Fuck.
So big things happening for us. So the two podcasts that you guys are familiar with now, Never Heard of It, of course, the one you're listening to, and our other more recent one, which launched 2 months ago now.
Yeah,
about 2 months ago.
I think we just putting a bow on month 2, I think.
See, there you go. Left of the Dial are now under the big umbrella of Night Shift Radio Productions, and we do have a third podcast on the way, which will be podcast. It's Smart Pack. But yeah, we have a third podcast on the way. It is currently in pre-production, and our announcements will happen soon for that one. So lots of good stuff.
We'll be coming at you with some fresh web presences, some all new content, new shows, new titles, new hosts, and whatnot. So we're excited. It's all happening. It's all happening in a browser.
Yeah, that's right. And of course, if you yourself have a podcast and are interested in joining our podcast network, please feel free to reach out. You can reach us at our contact form on our website, thenahoit.com, TheNahoit.com. Definitely reach out to us because, if you want to join our network of growing podcasts, please do. But that being said, we're gonna kick right off with Blood Scarab. So I just by seeing the image, like the poster of this, and by reading the description, I was like, actually, this sounds pretty fucking cool. Like, I love the history of it. You know, I'm into vampire lore, you know, or vampire adjacent lore. And Elizabeth Bathory is such a really cool story. It's a historical story. It's a true story. Or Elizabeth Bathory was a true person. She lived in the late 1500s, died in the early 1600s. She was a Hungarian noblewoman and one of the first female serial killers, I guess.
Yeah, I believe Guinness World Records has her as the most prolific female murderer.
That's spectacular.
Which is a hell of an accomplishment. Get it, girl.
Yeah, right? Happy International Women's Day.
Yeah. Yes.
The day we're recording this is International Women's Day.
Oh, how perfect is that? I will say, let's get this right out there at the start. Significant content warnings. If you've checked out thenahoit.com and you see where we post trailers, I made sure to comment that even the trailer for this is hella NSFW. Basically, this movie is one 80-minute softcore lesbian porn,
Yes.
but with a little bit of violence thrown in. For good measure, because you know it's a vampire movie.
But it's barely
also a mummy movie, and also, yeah.
I don't know, like
so
heist film, I guess, part heist film.
So lots of nudity.
Tons and tons of nudity.
Mostly just a lot of breasts exposed for little to no reason whatsoever,
None.
aside from just being there.
Yeah.
So if that's your thing, sign on board. You're in for a ride.
Yeah. You know, it's really crazy to me the amount of times that females took their shirts off in this movie for literally no reason whatsoever. Like there was no like, for a lot of times there's no like sexual lead in, or it was like, oh no, I've seemed to have spilled grape juice on my shirt. It was literally just like, yeah, so I was at the store the other day, proceeds to remove shirt, and they were out of laundry detergent. It was weird. Like, and they're just taking their shirt like for no reason. It was just the most random thing I've ever seen. And it was just, I mean, it reminded me of like porn stuff.
Sit down at the mirror and brush her hair. Had to do that topless. To sit around and drink wine and paint each other topless.
Well, listen, Caleb, I'm not going to brush my hair with a shirt on, okay? I mean, so, we live in a society.
Here's the thing, like, that could actually be extremely accurate from all the times that people online talk about, like, you know, first thing they do when they get home, they take off pants, they take off bras. Well, I mean, maybe that's like legit. Like people do just walk around next to nothing in their own homes. And look, that's cool. That's you. It's just it's a little weird to see it in a movie with no inherent effect on the plot whatsoever. And I use the word plot very loosely.
Very, very loose. I mean, it's there is actually like, it's another one of those films where there's a couple of different cool things they could have done, because first off, we have to get at this out right off the bat, because so the movie starts out with Dracula, and Dracula has a fake fucking mustache. And not just like, you know, a cool like prop fake mustache. No, like one of those like quarter machine sticker, like super ass fake mustaches. It was the most off-putting thing. And I'm like, why does Dracula have a mustache? I don't understand. And Dracula typically doesn't have one.
This dude is seriously like straight up like dollar store Benedict Cumberbatch too.
No, he is. Oh my God. When you first see him and he turns around, I was like, holy shit, is that Benedict Cumberbatch in a mustache? Like, is he incognito doing this film? Holy crap, this is amazing. I was very excited.
It's some dude named Tony Clay, and I imagine that is exactly the pseudonym that Benedict Cumberbatch would take if he wanted to do weird lesbian vampire softcore porns as Dracula. He would be Tony Clay.
It would be Tony Clay.
Hello, everyone. I am Tony Clay, American actor.
Like, holy shit, are you Benedict Cumberbatch? I assure you, also American citizen. I get that very often, but I am not Benedict Cumberbun.
So,
please.
Yeah, but so it's also worth noting that this is one of roughly 5-ish somewhat interconnected movies, including The Mummy's Kiss, The Mummy's Kiss Second Empire, I believe, or Second Dynasty, sorry, Countess Dracula's Orgy of Blood, the erotic rites of Countess Dracula, and of course Blood Scarab. So this is basically a like softcore cinematic universe. Like
And
you got it.
And are they all the same people too? Like, is this really a thing?
It's so some of them are. So Tony Clay is in all 5 of them, from what I can tell.
Of course he is.
And not always as Dracula. He's only Dracula in a couple of them, which is hilarious. And that might be why he has to wear the fake mustache.
Right.
Was her name? I've had it recently. Cindy Pucci, who plays Tanya, one of the 2 roommates, who sits brushing her hair while topless, and then paints her topless roommate while drinking wine. She
as
is
you do.
also as you do. I mean, we do that like every week.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm just literally my closet is overflowing with naked portraits of my friends. I don't know what you do for bonding, but
she is in The Mummy's Kiss, the Second Dynasty. So, like, apparently they've got their actors and they roll with them. It's kind of like a Christopher Nolan universe, but for softcore vampire and like monster movies, just in general monster movies.
that's spectacular. So Blood Scarab initially, if you go by the intro, so the way the Blood Scarab story is, what if Elizabeth Bathory, gets with Dracula, gets turned into a vampire, which, by the way, Elizabeth Bathory lived from 1560 to 1614. And Vlad the Impaler, the person who inspired the story of Dracula, he's Vlad Dracula, that's his last name, lived from 1428 to 1476. So there was a good, like, almost 200 years between them, about 150 years between them that they actually lived. And so Vlad lived in Romania, and Bathory was in Hungary. Now, I'm not that great with Eastern European geography, so I don't know the distance between Romania and Hungary, but I think they're pretty close by, right? I think
they
kind of
are literally neighbors. They butt right up against one another.
Cool.
Yeah. So here's I'm gonna have to get this out now because I'm gonna rant about it at some point.
Right.
Dracula was a title assigned, essentially like a nickname, the son of the dragon or like the dragon. Tepish was his actual surname, and the fact that not only do they referring to him as Count Dracula, okay, that's fine. Like, that's kind of cool because it's like a badass name. But referring to it like it's his last name, to the point where they talk about the marriage of Vlad and Elizabeth Bathory, and they talk about joining the Draculas and the Bathorys, and I'm like, that's not a thing.
Yeah,
you're not joining the Draculas and the Bathorys. So that's my rant about why words matter.
Words matter, Vlad Dracula. Words matter. Yeah, so the intro of this film is like, Elizabeth Bathory bathed in the blood of virgins to it was the fountain of youth for her or whatever. So and that is the true story of Elizabeth Bathory. She did kill a whole bunch of virgin maidens and then bathed in their blood, thinking that would keep her young forever. And
the highest number cited during her trial was 650. That is like,
and that's insane. But I mean, the thing about that is not like she was doing it in secret. Like, it was a very she was requesting virgins from from her serfs or tariffs. I don't remember the terms. Her serfs, lord, serf. What's the
serf?
Serf,
yeah,
lord,
those
lady.
would be the kind of the peasants in a feudal system.
Yeah,
reporting to the lord.
All right, dude. My eighth grade history teacher is like, "Fuck yeah," listening to this.
I really want to picture your 8th grade history teacher listening to our podcast and like just being like momentarily proud if we get anything at all right.
As do I. So that was like the story of it, and she's often tied with vampire lore, even though she herself was not a vampire, obviously, because they don't exist. But she, it was kind of the same sort of idea of bathing in, consuming blood, to try to be young and live forever. Mind you, she only lived until she was 54. But that was a long time. 400 years ago. So kudos to her. Maybe it did work. I can
kind of see where at this point in history without a lot of good science in Europe at the moment in time, right. Thinking that the blood of the young might somehow also rejuvenate you. I look back at this and I think that's a really great way to catch yourself some diseases.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Really good way just to get some nast on you.
Get that nasty. And that's how coronavirus
that is how coronavirus spreads, people.
100%.
Only bathe in the blood of your enemies that haven't recently traveled to a region where the infection is common.
So this brings a story to mind of an old comic book I used to have, part of the What If series, and it was Michael Morbius from the vampire from Spider-Man series and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. He drank the blood of someone like on acid or something, and he gets like super fucked up, and because he has the cool powers of like the dream world, he basically like sucks in a whole bunch of people into like this crazy psychedelic dream world, and it ends up sucking in Venom and Wolverine, who have to then team up to like go fucking kill Morbius. And it was just great because they're both just like, fuck you, no, fuck you, blah, blah. Like they're just being assholes to each other, but they're like, all right, well, we're going to rip this guy to shreds and then, screw you after we do that because, whatever, I hate you. And it was just a great comic. And I remember having it as a kid, and I wish I still had it because I think like Moon Knight was in there. Like I think he popped up every so often. It was like, what are you assholes doing? Oh, that's cool. All right, see you, peace out. Because Moon Knight was kind of like very Deadpool-esque. And it was just a really, really cool comic. And I remember having a whole bunch of the What If series, but that one stuck out to my mind very often and made me think of this for no reason other than blood drinking.
Blood drinking.
Yeah. But yeah, so the story is we see Vlad Dracula, and he's this happens a couple of times throughout the movie. Don't vampires have watches? Like, they've been around for like 700 years at this point. Like, Vlad Dracula's been around for over 600 years by the time we see him in the beginning of the movie. And he's like peeping in on the girls brushing their hair topless. And like, it's almost sunrise. Like, motherfucker, what you been doing for the past like 8 hours?
Yeah, so Dracula is not going to find himself caught out in the sunshine because he lost track of time, perving on some titties through the window. Like, Dracula has been around and has figured his shit out by now. Now, do I have difficulty believing that this version of Dracula has that issue? No, none whatsoever.
I'm surprised he lived this long is really the...
like, so there's a lot going on there because Dracula flies in and it's like, first of all, it's also worth noting that it's been a while since we did a good Dracula crossover movie.
It's true.
So it feels right as we're in the early weeks of our third year that we come back around to a Dracula movie. He flies in on one of the worst bat to human transformation animations I've ever seen, and I love it. It was awful, and
it was so terrible.
Out from this like just really terrible bat pops, like we said, dollar store Benedict Cumberbatch with a fake ass mustache, and we're supposed to believe that this guy, he's the impaler, he's the dragon, he is Vlad fucking Tepish of Wallachia. No, I'm sorry, I don't believe that for a second.
Not gonna buy this shit at all.
This guy is like third cousin twice removed, the one you don't invite to the holiday party of the Draculas, and
You're like, oh God, Vlad's here.
oh God, who invited Vlad? And he has his servant Renfield, who's supposed to like keep watch over him and take care of him during the day, and make sure that when he's out hunting at night, apparently his senile old ass remembers to get back in the car and drive home, because of course they're living in the fucking L.A. Of all places,
Right.
Yeah. Sunshine is gonna like set you on fire and literally kill you. So move to one of the sunniest places in the Western Hemisphere, or I guess in the northern Western Hemisphere. From Central Europe, which I imagine has a climate very similar to where we grew up.
Oh yeah, and the other crazy thing about this is that like so they go to LA, or they're in LA basically, and that's sunny Southern California.
Yeah,
but like Twilight came out the same year as this movie, and like everybody knew Twilight was happening. So like imagining being like, oh my God, I love vampire movies. I'm gonna Google other vampire movies and seeing like Twilight and then like Blood Scarab and being like,
oh God,
no. Twilight seems like, this might be like too much young adult for me. I'm gonna go see Blood Scarab, and then seeing them like, what the fuck bullshit is this?
Twilight might actually be a more believable vampire movie.
100%. I would take an Edward Cullen over fucking dollar store Benedict Cumberbatch any day of the week.
Oh my
down.
God. Oh, I love it. So Dracula, he's perving it up and realizes that the sun is coming up, which the sun is out for almost the entirety of this movie because it's
never
fucking
actually
LA.
Night.
It's never actually nighttime, right. Even when it's supposed to be. So this is obviously summer in LA too, where the sun sets clearly sometime after midnight. So he gets caught out, and Renfield, his servant, is distracted by catching and eating fireflies, because apparently the Renfields are known for an obsession with eating bugs. Which is that an actual like part of Dracula lore? I don't recall ever reading about bug eating Renfields.
So in the Bram Stoker version, specifically the movie version, the one with Gary Oldman and stuff like that. The Renfield character does in fact eat a bug in the movie, and he does it like once or twice because he's like, he's an insane person. He's like an insane asylum reject because he's been driven mad by the knowledge of knowing that, vampires exist. And so, but like, I don't know.
Here's something fun that I just learned thanks to Google and Wikipedia. Clinical vampirism, more commonly known as Renfield syndrome or Renfield's syndrome, is an obsession with drinking blood. So apparently that's a thing.
What do you know?
That's a real thing, obviously named after this character. The Renfield in this movie was definitely a roadie for Megadeth in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
Dude has long, past his shoulders, mostly gray with one dark stripe hair and a handlebar mustache, and just acts like he's stoned out of his fucking mind at all times, and it's amazing. He's probably the best part of the entire movie. So he rushes to get to Dracula home, and they get to just outside the front door, and rather than going in the fucking house, Dracula stands in the sunlight saying, "Oh no," and lights on fire and collapses into a pile of ashes, for which Renfield now is just mortified at what he's done to allow this to happen to his master.
Well, so the thing that really gets me about this is that so he's racing back in Renfield's car, in their car back to their mansion, and he's at the door and he covers himself with his cape, but then for some reason puts the cape away from his face, and he's all like burned up. But like he's at the door of his own house. Like just open the fucking door and go in. Like you're literally right there. Like just be like open the door and be like, all right, I'm in. That's it. And like the whole time Renfield's standing up at the car being like, oh no, dude. What's going on? Like, you're burning, brah. What's up? For like 5 minutes while he's burning. And I'm like, dude, like, go help him. Like, you were useless.
Put it in reverse, Terry.
Yeah. It was, oh my God, it was just so fucking dumb. So that's the beginning of the movie, like the literal first 5 minutes of the movie. And he does that stupid vampire thing that they do in cheesy vampire movies, where whenever vampires see someone that they want to suck the blood out of them, or they're like spying on someone, they like open their mouth and like bare their fangs and go, for some reason, for like 5 minutes, and you're like, what are you doing? Like animals don't even do that. Like, what are you? Like my dog doesn't even do that when it sees good food. It just goes and fucking eats it. Like, what kind of theatrical performance is this bullshit?
It's so badly overacted or underacted. It's just badly acted.
It's just bad.
Just across the board, the entire movie.
Oh God, it's so bad. And it's so funny too, because like later we'll talk about this, but talking about whitewashing, they flash back to a scene of ancient Egypt, and everybody is fucking blonde with huge boobs, except for the male guards who are conveniently black, but everyone else blonde, white, big boobed female for some reason.
There's even a scene where they summon Hathor, who's supposedly the sister of Ra. I don't know Egyptian mythology well enough to know if Hathor is actually an Egyptian goddess. Once again, we could use the internet to look that up. But her attendants are both women of color, but she herself is a blonde, basically porn star.
Yeah.
And like this, like not only is this movie like really poorly acted, it's also hella racist.
No, yeah, totally. So before we get into this, so now Vlad's dead, and his whole thing is happening, and now Renfield's here, and then Countess Bathory arrives.
Now that we've established that Dracula's dead and this movie sucks.
Yes. And again, only the first 5 minutes of this movie. Let's go ahead and take a quick little break. And when we come back, we'll actually dive into the story of who this film is actually about, which is Elizabeth Bathory.
Hey, so I don't know if you noticed, but it looks like we've got another Anchor ad.
Oh.
So I guess we should talk about that. And I think we probably can't talk about Anchor without throwing out there right off the bat, like, it's free.
Free?
Can you believe it? It's free.
Wow. And I hear that there are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer.
And if you're lazy like us, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you. So it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and I think some more too. I think many more.
That's fantastic because it's so much work going to all of those platforms.
It's so much.
And you could make money from your podcast with no minimum amount of people. So if you only have one friend that listens, you can still make some cash.
Like us.
Yeah.
And, it really is everything you need to make a podcast, just in one place, one-stop shop.
Wow, one place. Well, you should go ahead and download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today.
Like right now. But, I mean, after the episode.
Hey everyone, I'm Kitsy.
And I'm Caleb, and this is Left of the Dial, a music podcast.
Every week, we each dig into our collections for a record we love, or a new record we're excited about, and talk about it.
We'll share clips of songs that stand out to us, and discuss why we chose each one, what we love about it, what we don't, and why the record was important to us.
Hopefully, we'll find some new music to love with every episode, and maybe you will too.
So join us every Friday for new episodes at leftofthedial.fm,
or wherever podcasts are sold.
Excuse me.
That's excellent.
Hello and welcome back.
You know what I have been watching lately that like was enjoyable? Season 3 of Castlevania came out. And,
I haven't watched. I just finished Altered Carbon season 2. So I have to jump on to Castlevania. I also want to watch I'm Not Okay With This.
See, I'm just thinking specifically of vampire stories that don't suck.
Oh, ironically, pun intended. Wait, pun intended? Yeah.
No, not intended. Wow, good on me.
There is actually a movie called Vampires Suck. That's one of those, like, you know how like they do those like the scary movie type films where they like parody film, like, you know, films of the day, and Vampires Suck, I think, was one that parodied like Twilight and something else. But by the way, I did look it up. So Hathor is in fact an ancient Egyptian of a goddess. She was the mother of Horus and the sun god Ra.
So they got it part right. They refer to her as the sister of Ra, but being the mother of Ra, obviously that much more important in the pantheon.
Yes, I mean it's a little interchangeable, I know, with a lot of the gods and goddesses, you know, even in Egyptian, or I mean even in like Greek and Roman mythology.
The Egyptian pantheon, well, all like polytheistic pantheons, but like the Egyptian one from the times that I've read about is fucking wild. It's crazy shit, and I love it. I love it. Also worth noting that in the disclaimer at the end of the credits, that usually refers to like all persons depicted in this are fictional, blah, 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 blah. They do explicitly call out, except for Elizabeth Bathory and possibly Hathor, we don't want to take any chances.
That's cute. That was funny. So now Vlad's dead. Renfield is burying him in a tiny coffin that he put all his ashes in, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. I did laugh at that because I know that was intended as humor, and I was like, he's burying him in a little tiny coffin, all his ashes. He's putting him in a coffin. They're just ashes. Like,
just gives him up with the dustpan.
Yeah, it just puts him in. Oh, I'm sorry, Dracula. I have failed you. Blah. And so Bathory arrives, and now at this point it is that we've learned that Elizabeth Bathory has married Dracula. She's in his house, and you know she's walking around being Dracula, Vlad Dracula, where are you? Or she's calling him Vlad.
Vlad, where in hell are you?
Vlad Dracula. Oh, you're gonna get it this time, Vlad Dracula. And it was stupid. And anyways, so we learned that, you know, she learns that Dracula has been killed by the sun, as vampires are wont to do, and or want to not do, I guess. And they can't all be good, guys. So now she's here and she's like, oh, well, now that he's gone, this is my opportunity to rise up and take over the throne or whatever. I don't know what throne exactly they were living in. If you know, Dracula was skeezing on two random, you know, bitches over on like Melrose Ave. Like, I'm not really sure what exactly the empire it is that they have. But she decides that she is going to, you know, she sees her bath that she used, Bathory, and so she decides that, okay, I'm going to bring back my glory by, you know, filling a tub full of you know, murderous, you know, women's blood or whatever, and I don't know, for some reason or whatever. But she's a vampire, so I'm not really sure what the purpose of the bath thing again was. Like, was she gonna sit in the bath and drink it? Was she gonna, like, I don't really know. I'm not sure. The logistics are a little confusing, and I'm sure Renfield's like, so you're gonna drink the blood? Like, come on, asshole, what are you doing with this tub of blood here? Like, I gotta clean this shit up. So, like, what are we doing?
She takes a nice nap in it. She decides that, you know, now she's gonna go out and feed because she's been back in this country for however long. It's been like 20 minutes, but she acts like it's been weeks and she hasn't feasted yet. So she goes out and somehow just happens to find the exact same women that Dracula was creeping on, and runs into one of them at the video store. Renting a couple of DVDs, one about vampires.
Yeah, The Vampire Strikes Back. which
then-
sounds awesome.
Yes, it does.
It's, all I hope is that it's like a parody of Star Wars, but with like vampires. Because like if you just make like Darth Vader a vampire and then the rest of the story is normal, actually, Star Wars pretty much is the same story as Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Go on.
Well, okay. So if Darth Vader is Dracula,
Okay.
right? And you make Luke Skywalker would be like I was gonna say Van Halen, but that's because my brain doesn't work. I mean Van Helsing. Words are hard.
All right. So Vader is Dracula and Luke is Van Halen.
Right. Bill and Ted are somewhere.
I already like where this movie's going.
This is already the coolest movie I've ever heard of. And so Han Solo would be like what the fuck's his name? Hawthorne? No.
Harker?
Harker. Yeah, so he'd be like Jonathan Harker. And Princess Leia would be like Mina, right? Or Mina is the other one. It's Elizabeth. Isn't it Elizabeth? Elizabeth Harker. Elizabeth Harker. I'm gonna say it again. Elizabeth Harker. I don't think it's Elizabeth Harker.
I remember
I
Mina
think it's
Harker.
something else.
Because
Harker?
the woman that Elizabeth comes across in the video store, her name is Mina. And
Yes,
when
it is Mina Harker.
introduces herself, she says something like, how cute. Like I see like a little tongue-in-cheek reference to the Bram Stoker story.
Yeah, so it is in fact Mina Harker, and she is married to Jonathan Harker. So that's our story. Because Van Helsing in the history, I think it turns out that Van Helsing, like his family line is intertwined with Dracula's family line at the same way, such as Luke to Vader, and then Han Solo is going off to kill him. So. I think a case could be made if you were stoned enough that you'd be like, yeah, dude, you are totally fucking right. Oh my God. My mind is blown right now. Blown.
I want to see the original trilogy remade as a vampire story. I want to see it.
I just think it'd be so good. I'm just saying.
There's your Elseworlds right there.
Right. But anyways, so no Van Helsing reference in this though, which I thought was really interesting. At least none that I noticed. But
I don't recall catching one. But they were already muddying their stories a bit by bringing in the Egyptian mummy, which I love that they specifically had to say Egyptian every time they referred to the mummy, an Egyptian mummy. Also, I mean, we're off track already, but like, what does it matter? What is it about? Maybe from history of film, like what is it about mummies in particular that like made them like movie monsters? Like what is it about dead people who have had all of their organs removed and then were like filled with preservation fluid and then wrapped up in bandages and stuck in a coffin, essentially? Like what makes them a scary movie monster?
I think, honestly, though, it's kind of a holdover from the early 1900s when, like, a lot of excavations were happening at that time. Like, there, Indiana Jones, like, there was a lot of Indiana Joneses in the world in the early 1900s, people that explored and, like, were opening up tombs and stuff like that. And I think what was scary about them is that the general public was really learning about them in a way that, information was traveling a lot faster in the early 1900s than it was in, say, the 1800s. Whether it was via mass production of books, which really kicked off later in the 1800s and mid to late 1800s, and then film in the early 1900s. And I just think it was, because there's tons of Mummy on the Orient Express, the Curse of the Tomb, the Curse of the Mummy. Like there's tons of films about that, and I think they all happened right around the same time as like King Tut's excavation and all those sort of things. So I think it was just kind of like a of the times type deal. It was very esoteric because of what it was. So I think that's where it came from. And I think it's just holdover. I think it's just that like standard, same idea with like Wolfman and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, like certain like traditional and even like modern movie monsters, I kind of get Like if we're talking about like just the visceral undead horror of say modern zombie, I get that, but like someone whose entire body has been wrapped up in bandages and left to like decay as slowly as possible in a hidden tomb. The curse aspect I like, the idea that like there could have been a curse placed on anyone who attempted to rob it, or the idea of like there being traps set on the tombs to prevent grave robbers, things like that. But the actual corpse itself getting up out of this like heavy sarcophagus and somehow managing to walk with because it usually shows them with the individual legs wrapped, which is another problem I have with this movie. The mummy is like walking around with like its individual legs like wrapped in bandages, but even like during the flashback scene where they show the mummy being embalmed, the woman who becomes the mummy, they show them wrapping both of her legs together, like binding them both together. Like, you're not getting up and walking with that.
And her arms too, because her arms are at her side because they're held down at her side so they can cut open her heart. Mm-hmm. And take out her heart. Yeah, which is pretty crazy. But so about that, in 1922, King Tut's tomb was discovered. So that's Howard Carter discovered it. But the big thing about the curse of the mummy's tomb was that, back then it was considered a curse is because a whole bunch of people who, once they opened the tomb, eventually died of sickness. Relatively near, within a year or so of having opened the tomb, almost everyone involved with it died. And the reason is because obviously they were infected by all sorts of, bacteria and just, allergen type stuff that just killed people. And then that was considered like the curse. It was the mummy coming after them and killing them for desecrating this tomb.
Things that they had no immunity to. And so it'd be like the modern equivalent of, the opening someone's house to find it filled with COVID-19.
right. The modern people's houses are just lined with that stuff.
It's
a good
out there.
Fire retardant. What are you gonna do?
It's just out there. Like they're full of it. It's in the air. It's in the furniture. It's in the food.
Choice.
It's in the computers. If you turn on the computer, you're gonna get the virus. Once again, a YouTube show of the worst science. If you turn on the computer, that's someone who had the flu had. If you connect to a network with them, you're also going to get the flu. That's how computer viruses work.
That's how. It's a virus. You catch it. I don't see how this is wrong. But by the way, that was two. Zoolander references in our call. Obviously, only one during the podcast, but these we were talking earlier about the Ambi Turner thing. But then I was like, it's in the computer.
The files are in the computer.
So that was also that's two references. Now, I could go on a quick diatribe about Ben Stiller and Zoolander. But I won't. I think I'm going to get back to shitting on this movie instead.
I think we're lost somewhere between Elizabeth finding the women that her late husband was creeping on, and the creation of the mummy that she later finds. Which not a lot of plot happens. Essentially, Elizabeth creeps on these women. She brings one of them home with her to snack on later. And she, too, almost gets caught out in the sun. So, clearly, these vampires are slipping in their old age. They're both losing it. And she makes the determination, rather than just continuing to deal with it, she's got to find a way, or rather Renfield has got to find a way for her to be able to satisfy her hunger in the daytime as well as the night, and to expand her power, which is a bold move. I like it. She's making the power moves now that Dracula's gone. To which Renfield just strolls casually on over to the LA Public Library and finds an ancient tomb on how to allow vampires to walk in the daylight. Like you do.
I mean, because that's, could you imagine Renfield going up to a public library and being like, yeah, I'm looking for books on how vampires could walk in the daylight. And they'd be like, okay, well, I mean, we have some fictional stories. He'd be like, no, reference, but how to. So, I'm sorry. Here is how to get a vampire to walk during the day for dummies. There's also a volume 2 that came out, but that one's checked out. Do you want to get that? Use the Dewey Decimal System for that.
We have The Vampire Strikes Back on DVD. You can borrow that. Also,
As well as Feats of Fury.
Did I say Ancient Tomb or Ancient Tome? Because I definitely meant Tome, but we're also talking about tombs. Because he learns that the secret to allowing a vampire to walk in daylight actually comes from finding an Egyptian mummy and making a sacrifice to the goddess Hathor via the mummy of one's own blood, the vampire's own blood, and then like beseeching Hathor to grant the power of the sun and of the sky and of daylight. And so, conveniently, there happens to be a mummy that's just been wandering around this town, as we learn is related to multiple previous films where like the people in LA are just getting assaulted by this mummy that just like keeps that crazy mummy just wandered off again from the museum.
Which is weird because the mummy, so first off, when the mummy ever does anything, you hear a whole bunch of jackals for some reason. And that was the crazy thing. So this woman, the archaeologist woman is sitting in her office and she's, doing stupid generic activities like looking inquisitively at a piece of pottery and then writing on her clipboard like, yes, intriguing indeed. But like, bitch, you ain't doing anything. Like, we know you're not doing science right now. Like, fuck off. Like, come on. And so she's casually writing on her clipboard and she hears the yeah, and she's like, huh. Anyways, like, what? Like, who hears that? I mean, it doesn't sound like it doesn't sound like a dog howling or like dogs barking. And even if it did, that would still drive some sort of attention. It is literally like a giant pack of jackals laughing in and or around her office, which is in a giant fucking museum in the middle of California. So, but like, this is a very unique sound. Like this is the type of sound that no matter where you live, like unless you live where jackals are out and about often, if you heard this, you would get up and look out the window and be like, what the fuck was that noise? Like, what was that noise? So she, literally just like, anyways. And then she's writing on her clipboard. And then, so the mummy gets up and it gets out of its tomb, which is in a different room from where she is, but it's close enough by, I would assume. And it gets up and for some reason the alarm goes off. So the alarm
it casually strolls out the door, which if you watch, like, this is definitely not like a well-secured building like you would expect a museum exhibit to be. This is very much a suburban office with like the cheapest doors that you would find on the like most cookie cutter of homes and office buildings. And mummy just walks over, casually opens the door, and fucks right out.
So if we had to try to explain like what this building is now, so this film was made in 2008. Today, this building is like a combination vape and CBD oil store. Like that's what this place is now. And and it says like e-cigs sold here is like the name of the store. So like if you are like CBD Life oil and hydroponics or something, like that's the type of store. Like you've driven past those type of stores and you're like, I'm not going to that fucking store. Like it's one of those. So that's what this building is now. So that's what they're pretending is a museum. So the alarm goes off. Go ahead.
Just another fun science fact. I don't know if they historically lived in Egypt, but jackals are apparently currently commonly found in like the grasslands, more of like Central Africa, like in the middle of the continent.
Instead of in Egypt, which is all the way fucking north of Africa. Which, by the way, Africa is gigantic,
enormous, but also they're not at all commonly found in or around LA.
Yeah. Oh, weird. Yeah, I would have never guessed that.
Again, definitely a thing.
Definitely something to cause concern, especially somebody who is a scientist of sorts. I mean, she's an archaeologist. Like, she probably has at least a PhD, maybe a master's in this. I mean, like, she would know that that they don't. There's jackals aren't in fucking Southern California. Like,
I think you flipped those.
Why? What?
You said at least a PhD, maybe a master's.
Oh, yeah. Okay, sure. The one that she's got the smart person's degree. That's the long one.
I didn't spend 8 years in evil medical school to be called Mister.
Oh, Mister, thank you very much. Fantastic. And that is my third Austin Powers reference in the week.
Yeah.
So now, again, you know, the jackals didn't trip her up. You know, she kind of like, and then goes back to her writing. The alarm goes off in the building. Like, we're talking blaring, like, you know, rah, 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 alarm. And same thing, bitch just sitting there writing in her clipboard, and somebody calls and she's like, oh, haha, the alarm went off. Yeah, I'm just sitting in my office. Like,
Probably that raccoon again.
Like, what if it's not a raccoon though? Like, this is Southern California. Like, what if somebody's like invading your museum? What if it's like, you know,
Ben Stiller.
Roberts? It's Ben Stiller
Having a night at the museum.
He's invading your thing and talking to all the dead people. Which, you know, okay. So, Night at the Museum. This is also now our third Ben Stiller reference. So, the thing about Night at the Museum, that if you look at it as a fun kids movie, that's magic. You're like, oh, that's a cute movie, right? Mm-hmm. But if you look at it from the perspective of Ben Stiller, basically goes insane for having to work alone, and driven to depression because he doesn't get to spend quality time with his kids, and you look at it as like a schizophrenic breakdown, it becomes a completely different film, perspective-wise.
Damn, dude.
Because, like, you know, you see him, like, you know, running around with Owen Wilson as a cowboy, you know, and that. But, like, if you picture it of how it actually looks and not, you know, in his mind, it's just him, like, playing with little figures in the middle of the night, being like, oh, shit, blah, blah, blah. You know, or, like, standing around talking to inanimate objects and, like, you know, falling down. It's like that scene in Fight Club when you go back and you see the security footage of Ed Norton, and he's beating the shit up, like he's beating himself up, and he's just like, you see him like punching himself in the face and like, you know, dragging himself up the stair. Like, that's what it would look like, you know, from the perspective of reality, is just Ben Stiller like talking to himself and like physically interacting as though these things were alive, and it becomes an insanely different film.
That's dark, dude.
Watch the movie again and see it from that perspective, and you're gonna be like, this dude is fucked up. He needs some serious medical attention. Like, this is messed up. Anyways, blood scarab. So she doesn't interact with the thing at all.
No, so the mummy just casually walks out. It's discovered passed out, drunk on the sidewalk in a park by a couple of dudes who drag it to a collectibles store and pawn it off there, apparently, like you do.
But, you know, the other funny thing about them is they looked like budget Lethal Weapon. It was like fat Mel Gibson who needed a haircut, and you know, Donald Glover just sitting there.
And so in the course of his research, Renfield, of course, learns that an Egyptian mummy is the key to Elizabeth's demands. And so he's calling around to all the local collectible shops. Because he hears on the radio a rumor from the local DJs talking about some homeless individual says that he saw some guys dragging a real live mummy into a collectible shop. So he gets out the yellow pages and calls every collectible store in the greater LA area, specifically, I guess, in Burbank, because that's apparently where the homeless individual saw this happen, right. Until he finds one that claims to have a mummy and tracks it down. And Elizabeth goes to pick it up, and is like my favorite moment from the trailer is in this. She's negotiating the price to buy this mummy, and he keeps talking about like, oh, well, it's gonna be really pricey because this is the real deal, and like collectors are really gonna want this. She's like, just fucking shut up and tell me, like, I'll pay it. And he tells her the price, and she's like, do you accept Transylvanian ducats? What? Oh no, sorry, just good old fashioned Yankee cash, I'm afraid. And she's like, yes, be that. What? Be what? Afraid. And then she just fucking like chokes him out.
I just like there's so much of that conversation that's so confusing because there's also crazy amounts of back and forth where she's like, name your price, and he's like, well, it's really expensive, and she's like, I will literally pay whatever, and he's like, I don't know, man, she's like, just tell me a price. For like before like that part happens that you just said, there's so much like insane back and forth where he's just like, I don't know, and she's like, dude, just tell me the fucking price. It was ridiculous. And then I don't even think he doesn't even give an actual number, does he?
No, I don't think he ever actually says.
No, he just keeps saying it's pretty steep. But then the craziest part is then once she finally sells it him, he's like, oh, I'll throw in this blood scarab as well. This is also supposedly priceless. It's like, what? Like, what?
And of course, then like we're pretty far along in the movie at this point, which is 80 minutes, so not a lot of time for things to happen. And he just randomly tosses in this scarab. What could that possibly mean?
Right.
So it's gonna sound like we're like really jumping ahead and like skipping stuff, but we're really not. Like she takes the thing home. She and Renfield perform the ritual. Hathor tells her how to get the power by drinking the blood and then like smoking the souls out of 3 young women, right. Like vaping them, like just fucking vaping them up, and then then she will have the power to walk in daylight. And so as a reward, she gives Renfield the skull the scarab because he likes bugs.
I like specifically beetles. Damn hippies, which was another random joke made.
I thought they were ancient history.
No, fuck off. Yeah, so I mean, again, it seems like we're rushing it, but literally the parts we didn't talk about are the fact that the entire like middle 45 minutes of this film consists of just lesbian porn. Like that's it. Like that's the whole center of this film.
Yep.
There's nothing else. It's just get naked. Let me, we'll touch boobies for 30 minutes for some reason, and then that's it.
Yep.
Literally. Yeah, so that's the thing. So now you're like, well, it's the end of the movie. All of a sudden, there's a blood scarab. So we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the blood scarab, obviously, right? No. In fact, they don't ever talk about the blood scarab until the last 5 fucking seconds of the movie where he picks up the blood scarab and is like, oh, yeah, cool, and throws it at her and kills her. And that's the end of the movie.
Well, she switches up her religion from Christianity to Egyptian pantheon in order to pledge her loyalty to Hathor, which she then immediately flouts.
And then as soon as she walks out, ha, sucker, flipping off the sky like, you idiot.
And so, of course, the cross doesn't affect her anymore. And he's like, oh, what do I do? And then like he has this flashback to the museum curator telling him how to some ancient Egyptians, this was a very powerful religious symbol. So, of course, it's going to work exactly the same on an Egyptian vampire as a cross would on a Romanian one. I don't know. It's
sure. I mean, yeah.
It's Richard Matheson kind of half-ass gets into that in I Am Legend because he talks about why would a Jewish man fear the crucifix, and so like that's all right. That's an interesting point.
Sure.
But yeah, there's really no time to delve into why that would matter beyond like, oh, I changed up my religion so the cross can't hurt me anymore. Oh no, a scarab. Oh, and then the mummy got me, and then you stabbed me with the mummy's broken arm, and now I'm dead.
And then she, turns into dust, and Renfield buries her in, next to Vlad, and That's the end of the movie, and you're left going, so the only purpose of that was to show boobs. Got it. Okay. I understand the plot of this movie now. That was it.
Like 80 minutes that could very easily have been just like 15 minutes spent on Pornhub. Boom, you're done.
Right. Like, that's the thing. Like, watching that movie is one of those things where you're like, I could have just watched a good vampire movie or I could have just watched porn. Like, and either would have been a better choice than this. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I do both, man. Like, start off with the Pornhub and then, relax with a vampire flick after. I feel like, fucking Bram Stoker's Dracula is still a great film today. Watch that. There's also tons of other Elizabeth Bathory films. In fact, there was a really good one, I'm assuming, that came out a few years ago called The Countess. Check that one out. It stars Daniel Bruhl and William Hurt. That's probably a good movie. Watch that one. It's supposed to be biographical about Elizabeth Bathory.
There was something else that was Elizabeth Bathory inspired that was big recently. I'm not going to be able to think of it.
I was trying to think of it. So The Countess came out in 2009.
Oh, maybe it wasn't something big. Was it Mama Dracula? Was that Elizabeth Bathory inspired?
I don't think so. Mama Dracula. Oh man, that was an old one.
Yeah, right?
No, I think that was. I think Mama Dracula was like Elizabeth Bathory-esque. There's also
female vampire must bathe in the blood of virgins. Yeah, it was definitely at least inspired by. Wow, I pulled that one out of nowhere.
Yeah, that was a good memory because I barely remember. I remember doing Mama Dracula. I do not remember.
I kind of wish I didn't remember watching
Mama Dracula. There's a few films that in our past that I'll come up by again and I'm like, oh yeah, I totally watched that movie. That was dumb.
You can watch any number of good and not so good Dracula movies. There's plenty of mummy movies out there that you can watch. Some classics. You can watch The Mummy with Brendan Fraser.
Yep.
And that will be a more enjoyable time. Just get good and high. Or you can get really high and watch the Star Wars trilogy and just picture them as vampires the entire time.
Yeah, you just imagine Darth Vader as a vampire and you can be like, dude, this is a great vampire movie. This is so good. I don't even understand.
And there.
But that being said, too, the other movie that Mina rented was Feet of Fury, which of course is a play on Fists of Fury. And I just love that, she rents the Vampire Strikes Back and Feet of Fury and calls her friend. It was like, oh, these are these movies I watch. And her friend on the other line was like, you're a fucking weirdo. She is not into that at all. And it's like, oh, I'm a fucking weirdo. You sit around topless and let me paint you while we drink wine. Who's the weirdo now? You're an insane person too. Sorry. We're watching this kung fu flick. Shut the fuck up.
I love it.
You owe me rent.
And it's there's the brief flashback scene where because Mina's been missing now for a day, and so Tanya has her other friend Samantha over and is talking about how worried she is about Mina, and she's like, well, you remember what happened the last time a roommate of mine went missing? And they flash back to what was clearly one of these other mummy movies because it's the same mummy, and she's on the phone with the police reporting, I know it's only been 24 hours, but it's just not like her to not even call. And then she hears the noise and the mummy comes in and rips her top off. And then it flashes back to the present.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
You imagine them explaining that. She'd be like, well, you remember the last time that a roommate went missing? So she was on the phone and, talking, and then this mummy came in and ripped her top off. It was such a creeper. And then she died, but, she had nice boobs, and that's, she still owes me rent. I think she borrowed that top too. I need to get that back.
Oh,
all right. Blood Scarab is available on Tubi TV. Should you watch this movie? No. maybe if you just want to see, some boobs, but other than that, no.
This is one of those instances where we did the work so you don't have to.
Right.
Don't watch this movie.
Yeah, there's better things to watch to get both of those scenarios. Like there's a lot better. I've only seen like an episode or two, but I hear the Van Helsing series, the new one, is a really good one where it's Van Helsing, but she's female Van Helsing and she's like part vampire or something like that too. As a vampire. I heard it's a really good series. It was on Sci-Fi, but it is available on Netflix now. Yeah. So I watch that instead. Maybe it's better.
Maybe.
I don't know. Could be cool. I've heard it's good, and it has like 5 seasons. So
it probably can't be worse.
No, I guarantee that. I mean, the first episode was really cool, but I just didn't like progress past like episode 2 or 3. I think I got distracted by some other show or something.
And that's that.
And that, as they say, is that. So thanks a lot for joining us, everyone, on this journey of Blood Scarab. If you were to go to a website on the internet, or in the internet, or in the general region of the internet, where would I go if I wanted to learn more about this podcast?
If you were looking for files inside the computer, you can search for them in the directory labeled thenohoit.com. That's THENHOIT.com. And as always, you can see what our upcoming schedule is, what we're subjecting ourselves to, so you can decide if you want to join and play along at home. We will provide links to trailers and definitely mark them if they're going to be full of things that you probably don't want your boss to see, like this one was. And of course, we'll let you know where you can stream them if available. And as Michael mentioned earlier, we've got a contact form on there, so you can reach out and touch someone, as AT&T used to say. But Michael, where else can they find us?
Hey, did you know that you can also find us on social media? We're at The Nahoit Podcast on Instagram and Twitter, where same thing. We'll post when episodes go live, which is every Sunday. We'll also post clips from previous episodes, trailers for upcoming episodes, and at the beginning of every month, a cool little video will play that kind of shows you an idea of what you can expect from us for the rest of the month, which, we get a lot of, we plan at least a month ahead. So you'll be able to check that out. And next week, we're doing a really cool one.
Oh, shit, yeah.
So next week, we are going to be doing Big Time Adolescence. It's a film that came out it would have come out just recently on Hulu. It also was in theaters tomorrow. Nope. Theaters has been in theaters, and it actually came out 2 days ago on Hulu. So if you haven't watched it yet, just came out a couple days ago on Hulu, or if you happen to catch it on theaters. But Big Time Adolescence, starring Pete Davidson and Griffin Gluck. And the fun fact about this film is that this film is made by my film studio, Syracuse Studios.
Congratulations!
So this is one of our first big productions, and is one of the first Hulu original films. So definitely watch that and catch us next week when we talk about Big Time Adolescence.
Excellent.
Cool.
Excellent. We've got another vampire movie coming up next month, don't we?
Yes, we do, and with a special guest star. Jordan Van Dyne, who's a writer, he wrote a film coming out later this year called The Binge, starring Vince Vaughn. He is a writer on the relaunch of Animaniacs. Ooh. And he also just recently was in the news because he's the writer for the new Netflix film coming soon called Cocaine Hippos, which is gonna be great. But it's so Cocaine Hippos. You're like, what the fuck? But it's actually about. Was it El Chapo? I think it's El Chapo, he was smuggling drugs via exotic animals, and he ended up bringing over all these hippos that had like heroin and coke in them, or had coke in them, and then they ended up like invading this natural habitat because they were not natural, natural to this environment. So there's just fucking hippos running around with coke inside of them. So it's this cool story. It's a really, really crazy story. It's a true story, but he is writing about that. So we'll get to chat a little bit about that and talk about the film Vidar the Vampire, which looks fucking insane and hilarious.
Oh my God. Just here it is. Just put it out there. Well, once again, thank you everyone for joining us on this. This has been Never Heard of It, a Night Shift Radio production, and we'll see you next time.